I would like to invite Manja and Vishnu Gurdara to say a few words.
I'm not prepared with any remarks, but Mani Nandaji, I have come to know him over the years. He has stayed with us quite a few times at our home. We have the privilege of having him. A very humble person with extraordinary achievements to his credit, that whenever you meet him, you see him. For example, my son, Rushi, when he was young, he will make sure that he always spends, even when he was in high school, that he will spend half an hour with him. That is the sort of humility he has. There is so much to learn at a personal level from him that, I truly admire him as a human being who has put the spirituality in practice in terms of how to treat others, as well as how to really not care about showing off your achievements. And he has been a provost of the Denver College of Law, and there are just so many achievements he has had in terms of writing articles, writing books, representing US at various international forums. He is an authority on human rights in international law, and he is very sought after for in various different countries for teaching the human rights law at various different universities. But I think the greatest thing to me is not really his achievements, but him being as a person who can really, anyone can feel very comfortable with him, and he is comfortable with each and everyone. So Nandaji, it has been a privilege knowing you, and we in Houston have been lucky that you have been visiting us at least once a year, if not more. And I don't know how he keeps up with his travel schedules. As Arunji mentioned, he takes at least 100 flights a year. Every time whenever I see him, either he's coming or he's going somewhere. And most of the times he's traveling internationally. So I think I'm really glad that Government of India has recognized you with the Padma Bhushan Awards, and in that recognition, I hope that at least at a personal level, I wish that I can try to learn that humility from you, and that would be really a great contribution you would be making to myself. So, having said that, I think, but we are really extremely happy, and I have seen him in meetings when we'll have like marathon meetings about 8 to 10, 12 hours, about HSS and things of that nature. He would tirelessly sit through, will not even say a word unless he feels that he needs to make a comment. So, but whenever he sees, as Arunji mentioned, that he will speak his mind when necessary. So it is that quality and that clarity of thought he carries with him. So Nandaji, it has been great honor knowing you, and pray to God that you hit the century. So that we can all learn more from you. Thank you.
Now I will have Rameshji and Swadharta Jainji felicitate Manya Ved Nandaji by giving a token of appreciation on behalf of the whole Houston Hindu community. On behalf of Pujayas, with Muni Swamiji and Das Swaminarayan Mandir, I'd like to invite Ashwinji to felicitate Manya Ved Nandaji.
What do you say after all this? I think two things that were said today, they were correct. The rest of them, just forget everything. One is that I did drink a lot of lassi. And the second is that I do teach international human rights law. And in teaching international human rights law, I have learned one thing, and that is don't simply talk about it, but practice it. And today's practice is that there is a human right to have good lunch. And that was at 1 o'clock. And it's already close to that. So I think I've got 12 minutes. So I will cut it down what I wanted to say, because I do want to say a lot, but I'll just say a few words. Rameshji and all others have said that he is very humble, he has got humility, and the reason is that when you deserve that, you do it. So I think I deserve humility, and I practice it. I want you to know that 3 years ago, I had the privilege of coming here for Hindu Sangathan Divas. And since then, I'm not going to name cities, but I counted today that in about 9 places around the country and around the world, I have talked about one place in this country that is a model of Hindus being able to come together, and that is Houston, and I in 2015, one of our distinguished colleagues representing an organization, and I don't remember what, and he said something that really struck me as coming from his heart, and showing and giving an indication that something needs to be done and it's the need of the hour. We all hear about all the time that united we stand, divided we fall. And he said that he has seen all around that divided we stand, united we fall. And he said that's who we are as Hindus. And I thought about it, and I think as you look at it, not in any depth, there is truth to it. That we have not been able to work together in our own temples, in many Hindu Indian organizations. At times there is not civility. People are harsh to each other. And it's the same person who sits along with Americans in an American organization. He or she is president of the Rotary. He or she is president of American organizations, and he is just an ideal human being there. And I have asked myself, what is that reason? What is that cause? And being a student of history and student of politics, I do understand that these 800 years of foreign domination, we can't put all the blame on that. But I think on this particular issue, I do feel that those 800 years took our self-esteem, took our self-confidence out. And those 800 years, that was a period of dark history where we were under siege. We closed all our doors, windows, and at that time, intellectually, emotionally, we became, in the eyes of the world, bankrupt. And I think that still has got its own remnants left with us. So I think when he said that, I realized that at least in this city, on many issues, I have heard about your big occasions where thousands of people come together, and you have had an imprint upon society in many ways. And then you have probably seen that in many countries. I remember going to Nairobi, a very small Hindu community, but a big imprint upon that society. They are the ones who are seen as problem solvers. They are the ones who are seen as people who have given a direction to society in that country. First time that I landed in Nairobi, saw an African black person, and he looked at me and he said, "You look like an Indian." I said, "I don't look like, I am." He said, "I want you to know that people like you, they have changed my life in this country." And I heard it time and again. And so we are capable of doing it. And then here, when he said that divided we stand, he meant that individually, as a family, we have achieved, accomplished a lot in the academics. Today, time and again, even my own colleagues in university, they keep telling us, "I have an Indian doctor. I don't want to go to anybody else but that Indian doctor. He is so good. I can't tell you how good he is." And in every field, in many places, especially in the Bay Area, if I go and I ask people to introduce themselves, I never ask what they do. I simply say, "What company are you doing IT with?" And then in any hotel or motel, I don't have to ask. I just said, "Patelji, how are you?" So I think we have done a lot. But let me say a couple of things. I won't take too many minutes, but I do want to say a couple of words today. And one is that I wish that I could go to all three of these themes that you had this morning, but I sat in that awareness part. And amazingly, in that one, the one issue that came time and time again was, what about the second generation? What about the third generation? And how do they keep their identity intact? Now, one thing that I noted today, and I think you noted today, that all these people who came up here, they are all young people, they are youth. So kindly join me in thanking them and saluting them. Because they are there, and as they spoke, and as you looked at them, they look like proud Hindus. And that is great. But the point was, and I think I recall that all the time, that for our own kids to keep that identity intact, and then there is nothing new to it, you all know it. There are only 3 places where they can learn it. They can learn from their parents, they can learn at school, they can learn that in their own temples. And the sad part is that in many instances, I'm teaching here, talking to the choir. So I think it doesn't probably represent here, but by and large, it represents the reality. And the reality is that many parents don't know much about Hinduism. That anchor that should be there, if that anchor is not there, you can't teach others. Now a kid goes to school, there is total distortion about Hinduism. Hinduism is snakes and sati, and Hinduism, all those things that you have thought about, aliens came from outside, invaded India, took over part of it. And then that is all that they know about Hinduism, caste system. How do you teach your Dalits? What are the untouchables doing in India? So that's the kind of setting. And so the kid goes to school, comes back and says to Dad, Dad, what is that hathi? What is that elephant doing there? What is that mouse doing there? You call that Ganesha? What is that? And parents don't know. So Dad looks at the kid and says, shut up! Kid shuts up. He or she is alienated, has no answers. There are queries. Goes to the temple, and many temples, they are wonderful people. Rituals are very, very important. But today, they were saying that in temples, in many instances, there are no answers to questions. And then in schools, there is total distortion. And I simply want to give you 1 or 2 instances, because for about 15 years, I was the vice provost of the university. And at for the university, we've got about 12 units, 12 colleges. So I was the chair of the Dean's Council. But at the same time, what I did was, all the students who came from outside, that was my domain. And we have many hundreds of students from China and from India. And the first year they gave me that job, I have an international house, and there is a church. And that church every week would give free food, free lunch, and there would be about 200 to 300 students that would come for free lunch. The first day at my job, I looked around and saw that from that church, there were about 8 or 10 volunteers, each one of them having a Bible, and each one of them talking to students about that Bible. And then a student came to me and said what they were saying is, come to my church, come to my home, and hear something about Jesus Christ, and that's fine. But I said to the person in charge of that, I said, look, I'm here, they have given me this job, I'm not going to let you proselytize here. I'm going to let no Muslim proselytize here, Jews don't proselytize, Hindus don't proselytize, but Muslims do and you do, and I'm not going to let anyone proselytize in this place. And I asked my associate vice provost, and a person who had done his PhD, but also he was a minister, Lutheran minister. And I talked with him, and he totally agreed with me that in the International House we won't have anyone proselytized. I won't make it a long story, but it went to the Chancellor, went to the Board of Trustees. Board of Trustees had 2 or 3 evangelical extremists, and they asked the Chancellor that it should not happen. Because what happened is that after that first week when I said, no, you cannot proselytize, they stopped taking Bibles, but then they kept still talking with students, and I found that they selected 2 special kind of students. And those were 2 special ethnic groups, Indians and Chinese. And the reason simply was that most of those Indian students who came, they knew very little about Hinduism. They are Hindus. But in India, as you probably all know, it's in our genes. We don't need to do anything more. And we don't need to know about Hinduism, and especially in the north. Because I'm Punjabi, I can talk about it. When you talk about culture, Punjabi culture is agriculture. They don't know anything about Hinduism, or what is it? I'm a Hindu. So don't challenge my Hinduism. What is Hinduism? Well, I don't give a damn about it. I'm a Hindu. Just don't ask me anything. You know, we were fighters. Here sits my Sikh friends. They are the ones who are saving Punjab, and are proud of that. But the point simply is that Punjab, not simply Punjabis, obviously people in the south, they kept Hinduism intact. But in many instances, you probably know, same is true about Chinese. They have very little understanding, appreciation, background of that. And so, in any event, the point that I want to make is that you and I, and not simply you, because you are probably all pretty conversant. As I said, you know, what am I doing here? This is the choir. How can I preach to the choir? But the point simply is that that is true about our own. And the other thing that I want to say, and very, very briefly, is that we have such a wonderful heritage. We are the trustees of that great heritage. Heritage that at the present time, no matter who looks at it objectively, that excellence in intellect, that excellence in philosophy, that excellence in values, no other culture has reached that. And if we do that, isn't it our responsibility that the testator gave that to us? I taught trust and wills and estate planning, and anybody who wants to know about estate planning, I charge very little, about $500 an hour. Here's my card. But the point simply that I want to make is that we have that heritage, we are the beneficiaries, we are the trustees, we need to make sure that it continues. I'll conclude by saying one of my colleagues, it's not only one of my colleagues, but several of them, when they know about me and they say, look, you keep talking about Hinduism, you keep talking about the second generation. And one of my colleagues said, kid, you're not going to be here, but wait for 2 or 3 generations. They'll not know a thing about you. And one of them said to me, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Gita, all that you keep talking about, he said, they're going to be in archives. And I said, no, you're wrong. Italians came here, Irish came here, Germans came here, British came here, they look like you. I said, my kids, no matter how much they bleach, they are going to be civilized. But he said, they won't know anything about Hinduism. So I think that is our responsibility. That is where when you put this Hindu Sangathan Divas, have these 50, 60 organizations together, boy, that's wonderful. I keep singing your songs. I keep telling about your story. And I hope that I'm right. I hope that that continues here. And you as Houston continue to be a model for all others. In my own state, Colorado, I have a small place in the mountains, and I have a little plaque, and that plaque says, Texans, go home. The reason is that Texans own all our ski places. And I'm here. They own all our beautiful, beautiful places all around the state. So that's why I say that. But you are wonderful, and I hope that Houston stays as a model. And today, all that they said, please know that I really feel humbled about it. And I think all the qualities that we were talking about, what they really want me to do is, they were telling me, you ought to have those qualities. You must aspire for them. You must prove that you are good. So I'll try. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman.
I didn't live up to my human rights.